Hi everybody, Martyn at Flicking Feathers again today. I'm tying the Calcasieu Pigboat. It's a bass fly, obviously. Nice sort of swimming fly, excellent for the largemouth. And you know, you can fish it as a popper dropper option, or you can fish it singly on its own and around the cover. Very good in a range of colours. As always, I'll stick a materials list in the description, along with a link to the Patreon page if anybody wants to support the channel, get access to the monthly fly tying classes and enter the giveaways. You can also like the video, share the video, watch all the way to the end. That also helps the channel to grow. So I've got my hook and my vise. I'm tying this on a B10S size 2, but you can go bigger or smaller. And I've run on a small amount of lead. You don't have to weight it, right? But I'm running on, I'll just adjust that so it's a bit lower. I'm going to put 20 tons of 010 lead wire, right? Nice and light, so that it'll help it sink, but it's still light enough I can put it on. You can tie it on behind a popper, no problem, or fish it under an indicator. We touch of super glue there, and then I'm just going to run on some thread. This is 210 denier UTC. I prefer a flat thread for this, although if you want to use a round thread, that's fine, but use something strong. And dark brown I'm using, but again, colour up to yourself. The first thing I want to tie in is a hackle, and I've got a big saddle hackle from the back of a furnace saddle. And I'm just going to tie it in by the tip. Sort of where it starts to sort of widen out to its full size. Trim that away, don't need to be fussy about it. And then I'm going to get some large size chenille. This is woolly bugger chenille, but any sort of heavier chenille. You could use a cactus chenille as well if you want it, but you want something that's got a bit of bulk to support the rubber legs. And I'm just going to rush forward with this, and I'm going to stop there. Right, I'm going to leave myself almost half a shank, maybe a third of the shank. Take the thread wraps out of the way, trim that off. I can just sort of wind back so that I can land my hackle on the wee bump of the chenille. And then all I'm going to do is drop the hackle into the chenille wraps. You'll see it'll just try to sit nicely inside. And when I get to the front, I'll get a couple of turns. Trim that away. And you can use a big long hackle if you want. It's up to yourself, really. You know, you could just like a cheap Chinese strung hackle would be fine. I'm going to tie on my rubber legs, right? And I've got basically a full width strip, right? The barred round rubber. I'm going to make it, say there's a shank and a half or thereabouts. It's not absolutely crucial. I'm going to separate it into strips, so in half, then in half again, and this just makes it much easier to tie them in. So I've waxed my thread, right, because it just helps it to grip and stops it slipping. And then I'm going to catch it on the side. Now I've tied this here with the orange facing out. The second pair, I'll tie them with the green facing out so that I get both colours sort of visible. 2 or 3 turns. Then I'll get my next bunch. Just line them up so they're about the same length. And tie these in with touching wraps, right? You don't really want any space coming between them because it's very hard to flatten the rubber. Once, you know, if you leave a gap then tighten it on either side, it's very hard to get that rubber to lie flat. So once you've got a decent tie in, come in, give that a wee stretch and trim. And it doesn't need to be, you don't need to be perfect with this, but you might catch most of it because it's still going to, as you tie over it, it's still going to compress, right? And as I say, touching wraps, flattening that down, and you can see it's still moving forward. I might need to cut it again, but that's fine. Just trying to get a nice, I just want to get a nice head on my finished fly without rushing the eye, right? It's quite tricky because you're tying such a large amount of rubber in here. And I'm just waxing my thread and I'm just going to come back, cover that. The wax will stop this slick thread slipping. And that looks okay. Okay, we'll get my next two. Come over the top this time. Much the same length. And again, I'm using the heavy thread so that I can put a lot of pressure and wrap back so that the tie-in's exactly the same place. And then on the underside, make sure that length's much the same. Nice and tight, and I'm wrapping back, touching turns, making sure that it's all tied in evenly, right? I can work my way forward. Fine. And then much the same, stretch and cut. Stretch and cut. And then again I'm going to wax this and just creep that thread forward, building quite a large head. And then I'm going to build it up. making sure the tie-in is nice and straight. And then I'll turn it upside down. I'm just going to put a single strand of weed guard. So flatten a wee bit. Then I'll come in just tie it so that it sits in front of the right, you can see it's slipping, so wax again. And then to make sure it stands up, I need to put several tight wraps in behind, kicking it forward, make sure it's in line, which it is. I'll cut it off. That's fine. That just helps keep the fly fairly clear of weeds. It's no 100% weedless, nothing is really, but it does help. Whip finish. Now, traditionally this fly had eyes painted on, but flat tape eyes much quicker, gives you a nice shiny fluorescent eye. Although before that I've got a couple of wee fuzzy bits, so I'm just going to come in, just touch them with a lighter, just take them away. And then we'll get these eyes on. So fold the eye. These are 5mm on this size of hook, this size of fly. Gives you a nice, and it's fluorescent yellow opal. But whatever you like. If you want to paint them, paint them. Wee touch of super glue. Offer it on. Same on this side. Press. Make sure they're stuck. And then to finish it off, I'm going to separate the legs first, and then I'm going to use resin on the head. You need to separate the legs before you do the resin, otherwise they'll all still try to kind of stay together. So just grab them and stretch them. Separate quite easily. And then once they're all separate it. I mean, don't worry if there's like a couple that are still stuck together, that's fine, but like, you can't leave the whole strips. It'll no work the same when you separate them. So I'm going to use some UV resin. Used to be epoxy, but obviously the UV resin's a much better option nowadays. And I'm using Solar Res Thick. It's a very viscous resin. It's really thick. If you prefer the medium, that would be fine, but I like this. So I'm just going to make sure I've got plenty on here. Don't worry if you touch your legs a wee bit. That looks not bad. And I'll just come in with my needle and spread this around. Make sure all the thread is covered. Be sure and get it in behind the eyes and behind that weed guard. All the way up to the hook eye, but not in the eye. Make yourself a nice round sort of bulbous wee head. Now I'm just going to rotate my vise. Making sure, have a wee look all the way around. Make sure everything's nice and smooth. This thick levels out very nicely, and because it runs so slowly, you've got time taking it. You can like rock the vise and get it into position, and then when you're good, just make sure your weed guard's in line with the hook point. You can set it. You can see there's a wee puff of smoke sometimes comes off it when it sets, but that's fine. That'll do it. So there you go, that's the Calcasieu Pigboat. Great largemouth bass fly. I'm sure other things will eat it as well. It's full of movement. You can strip it, you can just let it drop. Deadly. So I hope that was useful. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, remember to give me a thumbs up below, and I'll see you for another video. Take lines guys, bye.